What if I told you that most of the suffering in your life isn't coming from the bad things that happen to you, but from you? Not because you're weak, not because you deserve it, but because without realizing it, you keep shooting yourself with a second arrow. Today, I want to share with you a Buddhist idea so simple it might just rewire the way you deal with pain and possibly change how you handle every setback, rejection, and disappointment from now on. We live in a culture obsessed with avoiding pain. Entire industries are built around it. We buy products that promise comfort, convenience, and control. We scroll endlessly, not because we're fascinated, but because the endless feed keeps us from facing the quiet discomfort within. We plan and schedule, map and measure, hoping that if we think far enough ahead, hardship won't know where to find us. And yet, pain still finds us. It shows up uninvited, sitting across from us at the kitchen table. The breakup still happens, even when we gave it everything we had. The layoff still comes, even when we worked late every night. The diagnosis still lands in your inbox, even when you've been doing everything right. It's in these moments that the illusion shatters. The belief that life can be made perfectly safe, that suffering can be outsmarted. Pain is not a glitch in the system, it is part of the system. Buddhism has a way of explaining this. More importantly, it offers something rare, a way of meeting pain without letting it consume you, a way of living so that even when life punches you in the gut, you don't have to collapse with it. It's not about avoiding pain, it's about understanding it. And when you truly understand it, something incredible happens. You can be hurting without being broken. The big mistake most of us make, here's the trap. We think pain is suffering. We lump them together in one big, unpleasant blur. If we hurt, we assume we're doomed to suffer. And if we could just stop hurting, happiness would automatically return. It's an understandable mistake. I used to believe it too. But according to Buddhist teaching, they are two very different things. Pain is the raw, unavoidable event. It's the cut on your finger, the loss of someone you love, the phone call that changes your plans forever. It's part of being human. Suffering, on the other hand, is the story we build around that pain. It's the constant replay of what happened, the blaming of ourselves or others, the what if and if only loops that keep us trapped long after the moment has passed. Picture this. Two people both lose their jobs. Person A feels the sting, takes a deep breath, updates their resume, and starts looking for new opportunities. Person B feels the sting and then spends weeks replaying the exact moment they were called into the office, picking apart every mistake they think they made, feeling anger at their boss, and sinking into shame. Same pain, completely different levels of suffering. And here's the kicker. Suffering is optional because it's largely created by how we respond to the pain, not by the pain itself. Pain may be inevitable, but the suffering, that's the part we actually have a choice about. The eight worldly winds, Buddhism says, our lives are constantly being tossed around by what's called the eight worldly winds. They're the invisible currents that push and pull us every day. Pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. The problem? We spend our lives trying to chase one side of the pear while running from the other, but they're inseparable. It's like trying to collect only the head side of a coin. Impossible. You want praise, sooner or later, criticism will show up to sit beside it. You want gain, loss is part of the package deal. If your happiness depends on controlling these winds, you'll live like a plastic bag in a hurricane, tossed up, spun around, and slammed down over and over again. Powerless, exhausted, always at the mercy of forces you can't tame. The Buddhist path isn't about stopping the winds. It's about learning how to plant your feet so they can blow all they want and you'll still stand tall. First arrow and the second arrow. Here's where it gets practical. The Buddha told a story. You're walking down a quiet path. The sun is warm, the air is still, and then, out of nowhere, an arrow pierces your side. It hurts. Bad. That's the first arrow. Before you can even catch your breath, another arrow flies towards you and hits the exact same spot. That's the second arrow. The first arrow represents life's unavoidable pain. It's built into the human condition. Sickness, aging, loss, failure, heartbreak. We can't dodge it forever. The second arrow is our reaction, the mental and emotional stories we pile on top of the pain. And unlike the first arrow, this one is optional. Example, first arrow, your partner breaks up with you. Second arrow, you tell yourself, I'll never find love again. I'm worthless. I wasted years of my life. And just like that, the wound doubles, and often the second arrow hurts even more than the first. The Buddha's message is simple but profound. Pain is part of being alive. Suffering is what happens when we keep shooting ourselves with arrows that don't need to be fired. You think, I shouldn't feel like this. People can tell. I'm embarrassing myself. I have to avoid situations like this forever. So you start pulling away. You say no to invitations. You change your routines. You shrink your world to avoid the trigger. Avoidance might reduce the sting of the first arrow temporarily, but it secretly feeds the second arrow until it grows into a monster that follows you everywhere. The fear gets bigger, the self-judgment gets louder, and the prison walls you build to protect yourself eventually lock you inside. That's the tragedy. In trying to avoid pain, we often create more suffering. Why we make the second arrow worse. Part of the problem is the illusion we live under, the quiet belief that we can control the winds of life if we just try hard enough. We save money to prevent loss. We buy insurance to avoid disaster. We exercise and eat well to maintain perfect health. All of these are wise, responsible things to do. But somewhere deep down, we start believing they'll protect us from every storm. And then reality shatters that illusion. The job still vanishes. The relationship still ends. The test results still arrive. The real problem isn't that life changes, it's that we expect it not to. We cling to good times like they'll last forever, and we run from bad times if we can outpace them. But here's the truth the Buddha pointed to. Every pleasure carries the seed of its end. Every gain contains the possibility of loss. Every praise comes with the shadow of future criticism. And every moment of health is balanced on the knife's edge of mortality. The point isn't to despair, it's to wake up, because once we stop demanding that life only give us the good half of the coin, we can finally stop fighting the winds and start moving with them. How to stop shooting yourself with the second arrow. The Buddha never said we could avoid the first arrow, but he did give us tools to stop firing the second one at ourselves. I think of it as a kind of life training, a way to move through storms without sinking. One, awareness. Between the first arrow and the second arrow, there is always a moment, a tiny, almost invisible pause, where we get to choose how to respond. Most of us miss it. We react automatically, driven by habit and fear. But mindfulness, the simple act of noticing what's happening in our body and mind, helps us spot that space. It's like seeing a fork in the road you never noticed before. One path leads to spiraling thoughts, blame, and endless suffering. The other leads to clarity, patience, and a chance to heal. Awareness is the light that makes the fork visible. 2. Acceptance of impermanence. Everything changes. This isn't just a poetic idea, it's the fundamental nature of reality. The good news? It means pain fades too. When we resist impermanence, we clutch at the pleasant moments like they're slipping through our fingers, and we run from the painful ones like they'll ever. But when we accept impermanence, we loosen our grip and stop running. It's the difference between standing in a river and trying to hold back the current versus learning to float and letting it carry you. 3. Shift your goal. Most people aim for an impossible life, one without pain, without storms, without arrows. That's a recipe for disappointment. Instead, aim for skill in handling pain. Like a sailor who knows they can't control the wind but can always adjust the sails, you focus on responding well to whatever conditions arise. The sailor's mindset. Think of life as an ocean. Some days the water is glassy and calm. Other days the sky turns black, waves slam the boat, and the wind howls in your ears. A beginner sailor spends most of their energy trying to avoid storms altogether. But the seasoned sailor knows storms are part of the deal. They don't waste energy wishing for perfect weather. They focus on steering well, keeping the boat steady, and adjusting the sails to the changing winds. Buddhist practice is exactly that. Training for the sea of life. You stop living as a helpless passenger tossed around by the 8 worldly winds, and you start becoming a skilled navigator. You still feel the waves, but you no longer fear them. And that changes everything. The shift that changes everything. The real turning point comes when you finally understand, I can't control every wave, but I can control whether I capsize. Life will still send storms. The winds will still change without warning. The first arrow will still find you now and then. But when you stop shooting yourself with the second arrow, something changes deep inside. Pain still knocks at your door, but it doesn't move in. It visits, stays for a while, and then leaves when it's time. You walk lighter because you're no longer dragging the weight of 1,000 unnecessary arrows. You bounce back faster because you don't waste your strength fighting what's already happened. You suffer less because you've stopped building a story that chains you to the pain. The truth is timeless. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You can't dodge the first arrow forever. No one can. But you can refuse to pick up the bow and fire the second one. So when life hits you, pause. Feel the sting of the first arrow, yes, but also notice the gap before the second. In that gap is your freedom. Decide, will you load the bow or will you let it drop? And remember, it's not a one-time decision. It's a choice you make again and again in small moments every day. Because in that repeated choice lies the difference between a life tossed helplessly by the winds and a life skillfully sailed toward the horizon, steady hands on the wheel, no matter what the sea brings.